Today on the Cre8tive Growth podcast, I'm your host, Ethan, and we have our guest here, Sam Mark, who's an in-house Addy Award-winning producer at Mac Service Group, a leading home comfort provider serving thousands of customers across Indiana, Kentucky, and Ohio. Recognized for decades of award-winning service, certified expertise, and industry-leading innovation.
Woo! That was a good intro. Thank
tongue
you for
twister.
having me.
Yeah. So being one of the youngest at a large enterprise company, what challenges do you face leading the video creative?
That's a great question. I feel like one of the things that I think about is it's kind of like a two-piece equation. So one, you have to prove like your competence within your role. So for me, that's like video production. You have to be able to tell stories creatively. You have to know like the technical side of how to execute that and how to lead a team to the vision that's in your mind. But I think the part of it that's honestly more important and sometimes gets overlooked in like the creative like asset creation space is more so the aspect of knowing the business that you're a part of. So it doesn't really matter if you tell like, this crazy story or, know how to create all these loud visuals if you don't really understand the brand that you're marketing for. And I think that that's just kind of the big thing that builds trust within the company. So it's like, one, I can have the technical or professional skills and they can trust that, but they're way more likely to buy into whatever story I'm wanting to pitch them if they recognize that I know on an intimate level, like what they're trying to do as a business. Like the moment I can establish that connection and that trust where it's like, hey, I see that this is your target demographic. I understand your business strategy. Like this is what you need to get for your bottom line. And this is the specific messaging that we're going to use to get you there. When I can show them that, I have the understanding they're going to buy in. And it doesn't really matter at that point what age you are, because you're kind of bridging the world between the creative and the business like marketing expertise. And then when you have that like winning combination, like they're going to buy in. So
How does that relate to, like, how do you differ from maybe hiring an external producer opposed to being internal?
like from the outside looking in, obviously if you're bringing in an external producer, you can kind of see that as like you're bringing in the pro from Dover, right? Like they work on different brands all the time. They're familiar with a lot of different communication styles, a lot of different messages they're trying to convey. And so sometimes companies can think that's the best route. I would say one of the biggest advantages to having someone in-house is you're working on the same brand every single day, right? It's not like you're, 1 week you're working for, a cereal company, the next week you're doing a car commercial, et cetera, et cetera. It's like every single day for multiple years, you are learning the ins and outs of their brand. You're learning the ins and outs of their products, their pricing, and how do you weave all of that together into a compelling story that's actually going to achieve results for them. So it's more so a function of putting in that time rather than it's just like, someone that you're bringing in externally, like maybe 2-3 weeks they're going to spend on the brand versus every single day you're living it. And when you live it like that, you're able to in turn kind of externalize that to clients a lot better.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a great take on that. And why do you think a lot of these creatives in companies are just, the trend is getting younger?
That's a great question. I think it's more so just every generation has like a different viewpoint or a different perspective on the way that they communicate with people. And I think that a lot of companies are always looking for like that next way of communicating more effectively to their client. And it's like, it doesn't necessarily matter the age. It's like the way that you can communicate a value proposition. And I think a lot of companies are open to that fact where, okay, if this person's 18, if this person's 20, if this person's 24, if they know how to tell a good story that's compelling and effective and actually achieves what we want for our brand, like let's get them in here, let's see what they have to say. And let's just trust them and give them the confidence to like, and the resources to really run with their idea.
And how does your creative fit into the marketing funnel?
Yeah, that's a great question as well. I think it's definitely interesting. So on the team that I'm on, it's a 6-person team, and everyone else on the team is essentially a platform manager. So you have an SEO manager, you have a pay-per-click manager, you have a social media manager, you have a media buyer. And so all those people are managing various platforms, which are a function of marketing, but none of them are creating the content that actually gets pushed out on those platforms. So the way that I view my role is like essentially the creator of the content that they're able to put onto their platforms, and that allows them to push that out there and drive results and like get people to actually see it. So it's definitely like an intimate process with each one of them, right? Like trying to figure out what exactly they need for their specific platform and what that messaging looks like. Like for SEO or pay-per-click, obviously you're going to have a lot different messaging style than you're going to have for social media. So it's like with SEO, maybe it's a lot more focused on some of the technical aspects of the pricing or the product that you have, whereas social media is maybe going a lot more towards the feel of the brand itself and just kind of creating the overall feeling for a potential homeowner in the home services who's looking for a company. So just being mindful of that when you're creating that content to be spread across those different platforms.
Gotcha. And then how involved are you with like the analytics on like the front end versus back end?
I feel like it's definitely a balance, right? So you can pitch like a very compelling story, right? But if you don't have the data to back it up, it's like essentially throwing a dart at a board. And you see that a lot of times with in-house marketing where people don't necessarily know what's going on behind the scenes with the numbers. They're just going based on gut instinct of, I think this should work, and just kind of going for it. And that's kind of like the number one trap that you can fall into as a marketer. And I think that's one of the things that gives marketing a bad rap in general is it's like, oh, you guys are just, creating whatever, just kind of throwing things on the wall and seeing what sticks. But then what separates really good marketing, to your point, is actually having that analytics in place, actually having that data to validate your decisions. And it's like, sure, you're going to try things that you haven't tried before. Like when I'm concepting something, like maybe I have some data in terms of the target demographic that we're working with. It's a female ages 35 to 50. They're married. They have a single family home and they're in specific zip codes in our city, right? So you have that general data as to who the people are that you need to talk to. But until you try something new, sometimes you aren't necessarily going to know if it's going to work or not. So it's like in my world, let's say you're thinking about creating two versions of a commercial. Maybe one is, leaning into humor a lot more, is maybe a little bit louder and more engaging. And then one of them is a little bit more safe, a little bit more tame, that falls within the parameters of what we've already done for the brand. And it's like until you test that out and validate with data like A/B testing and just see which one of these is actually going to perform better with your target demo, you're not really going to know. So it's definitely that balance of trying new things, seeing what's going to work, but then having the data on the back end to actually learn from what you're doing so that in the future, in every single iteration of what you're producing is going to get better each time and more focused on the people that you want to talk to. It's all about starting wide at the top of the funnel and narrowing it down to that customer who needs to hear your message at the right time, at the right place, and at the right price.
Gotcha. So you need to essentially test things out and to kind of figure things out and capture your analytics afterwards to kind of improve on and learn from what you've done before in the past.
I would say it varies wildly depending on what your role is. So for instance, we do a lot of direct mail as a company. So reaching out to clients in specific zip codes, and that's not really the sort of thing where you're going to spend like a high six-figure investment without knowing the zip codes that you need to go into. So like for different marketing functions, there is a lot more research that needs to go in on the front end as to where are our target customers living, like what zip codes are they in, like are they more likely to open the mail versus read the newspaper versus if they get some sort of email with an offer, like what is going to be the most effective means to reach them. So I would say that depending on your marketing function, the amount of data that you need on the front end is different from function to function for sure.
Gotcha. Love that. We'll switch gears into kind of a different direction. So for this question, will AI replace marketers?
So it's definitely hard to say whether or not AI technology is going to replace marketers overall. I think depending on who you talk to, there's a lot of different takes on how this is going to go down. I think the most realistic outcome is that AI technology is really good at task automation and it's really good at the creative idea iteration process. The way I think about it is it's almost like if you're an agency, you have a junior copywriter on your team, right? They don't necessarily have all the context or the polish in terms of developing a full idea or really knowing on like a human level, like the person that you're trying to speak to, but they can give you a pretty good draft, right? They can probably get it to like a 50 or 60% level of polish, and then they would pass it off to like a senior editor for review. And I think that's kind of how AI technology works in a marketing space is it's really good for bouncing ideas off of, kind of helping you to really explore the germ of an idea that you might have in your mind, or just kind of blow something up and look at the different avenues that you have to explore. And so I think it might eliminate a lot of the jobs that are maybe more entry level, but I think you still always need someone who has that human context, right? That can really connect to the person that you're trying to market to and just be able to reach them on a fundamental and human level. And so I think that's something that AI technology can't necessarily do. Like, it's not human, so it can't really understand things emotionally in the way that humans can. And you need someone with that knowledge and that expertise to be able to connect with another human and maybe take that 50 or 60% draft that AI has created and really polish it and hone it to fit your specific product and your specific message in a way that feels human. Because it's like, you think about that context of like the uncanny valley, right? And I think AI technology will continue to improve, but to some extent, it's always going to feel slightly off because it's not a human being reaching out to another human being. And I think at the end of the day, really everything in life is about human connection, right? It's about one person reaching out to another person and sending a message that that person receives. And that's all that marketing is at the end of the day. And I think that with AI technology, you can come close, but you can never actually truly replicate that feeling.
A lot of AI art, it's like people are kind of doubting if art looks too perfect. They're like, oh, is this AI?
Yeah.
It doesn't have that human touch to it.
Exactly. And I think there's like an unspeakable value to knowing it was made by another human. Because like if it's too easy, like everyone would do it, right? And it's like you think about things that are valuable in life. It's like it's because they are harder to achieve, and that makes them more desirable in a way. And it's like if you can just punch something into an AI prompt and it just turns it out, it's like, okay, like there was no necessarily work or effort that went into that. Whereas if you know it was done by a human, like you can see the individual brushstrokes, maybe the parts where they messed up or those imperfections. And like from a philosophical standpoint, sometimes it's those imperfections that make something actually perfect. And so that's the value that AI can't really achieve.
Gotcha. And I think that's a really good point as well, how if it's so easy that everyone can do it, then you can't stand out. And then a lot of what marketing is standing out from the competition. So it's
100%. That's a great tie-in to kind of get back to what we're talking about originally. It's like, I think about that every day from a video production and marketing perspective. It's like you have so many people out there. I don't even know the statistic anymore, but I think the statistics say it's like over 10,000 ads that you see every day, whether that's the logos on your clothes, like you open up your pantry in the morning, all the logos on the products in there, on your way to work, you know, all the signs, all the billboards, all the benches, everything you scroll on your phone, right? You see over 10,000 ads every day. And it's like, you become so used to it and you become so desensitized to it. It's just like this big cloud of noise. And it's like, as a marketer, how do you cut through that noise to reach the person with your message? In my world for video production, obviously, I think about good storytelling, right? Like you think about all the ads that are out there and they all tell very similar stories. But if you tell the story about your brand in a different way, that stands out and really connects with the client on an emotional level. So selling them on the why of your product, how it makes them feel and how it helps them achieve that specific lifestyle that they want. That's how it's going to cut through the noise.
So sales content versus branding content, how do you balance that?
So there's definitely a distinct difference between sales content and branded content, and both are important for any single brand. With branded content, the overall goal is top of mind awareness, right? So in the home services that say I have a heating or plumbing emergency in my home or just something's gone wrong, right? With brand awareness content, the goal is to get them to remember you. It's to cut through the advertising noise and just like give them just enough entertainment value or enough of an interesting twist to the story you're telling that you kind of stay in the back of their mind. And then when they have the issue in their home, they're like, oh man, my sink's backed up. Like, who should I call? They're trying to run through the list of options they have in their mind. If they remember your ad, they're way more likely to call you. So that brand awareness is essential just for kind of filling the funnel on the top end. And then if you're trying to get someone all the way through the funnel, like to actually make a sale, that's when the sales content comes in a lot more handy, right? So you've gotten them in the top of the funnel because you connected with them on a high level about the why. You know, they want to feel a certain way. They want their lifestyle to be a certain way. Your brand aligns with that, so they're interested. But then on the sales content, it's like that's when you need to jump more into the what and the how. So the what is the product that you're offering and the how is the job processes of how you get it done and the price point. And so when you're able to go into that in detail with sales related content in a way that doesn't feel like you're hitting them all over the head with it, like in a way that is still tasteful and has some nuance, that's when they're actually way more likely to convert, right? Because it's way harder to hit someone with sales related content when they're a cold lead, when they haven't seen your brand before, when they don't really agree with your why, they don't want that lifestyle that you're saying that you can help them achieve. So if you hit them with sales content first, they're just going to be like, oh, I'm being sold on a product that I don't want, I'm not interested.
Yeah.
But if you've already gotten them to kind of believe in what you do, then they're way more likely to listen to you when it comes to that price and that product and that process, and it makes sense to them because they've already seen the need of what you can provide.
Yeah. They're much more likely to trust you if they've seen your branded content before.
100%. Branded content is all about establishing trust, and then sales content is bringing it home with showing how you achieve that trust in a way that impacts them and it lets them make their life be better.
And what is the biggest problem you see with most creative today?
That is a great question. I think that makes me think of two things right off the bat. It's like with creative, I think you see a lot of people who either are purely thinking from a business related perspective. So they only go into the what or the how. They only want to talk about the price. They only want to talk about the job process. They only want to talk about how great they are, right? And then you have the other end of that spectrum, which you see a lot more with creative agencies, where they only think about the why, right? They're only trying to create this like cinematic brand story that's going to blow people's minds that like looks really cool, but then doesn't really speak to the business case or the need that the client might have. And like both of those just don't really achieve what you want, right? If you have something that's really cinematic and looks cool, but like doesn't really say anything about what it can help you achieve in your life, you're like, oh, that was a cool commercial to watch. Like just go on with your day. Don't really think about it. And then on the other hand, if it's only focusing on the sales or the price or whatever, you're like, this is like every other commercial out there. They're trying to sell me on something. And so I think you see a lot of people who are either completely in one party, they're in the video production industry, or they're completely in the other party, they're in the business industry, the marketing industry, and they don't really understand that in order to be successful, you have to bridge the gap between both worlds. You have to be able to speak the language of a video production creative professional director, and you have to be able to speak the language of a strategic, savvy business operator who understands marketing and how that fits into the operations of their business. And when you can bridge those two worlds together and you kind of fill that gap with the content you create, that's when you're going to be really successful and you're going to cut through the noise right away and drive those results that you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. So it's like a good balance of both types.
Exactly. You got to balance both, and too many companies fall into one camp or the other.
For sure. And then to be also clear for our audience, it doesn't have to be just video. Your video campaign can be more of the branded stuff, but then your maybe the email campaign is going to be more focused on maybe the sales side of things, trying to convert those leads.
Obviously, I'm speaking more from my experience as a marketer from video production, but I would say it's all about having the right marketing mix, right? Like there's a reason why I'm not just a one-person marketing team for video, because video isn't the only means that you can reach your client. It's like you need to have all these other types of marketing that all weave together to actually meet your client where they're at, and that's going to have various levels of creative versus kind of sales oriented strategy depending on what that platform is.
For sure. So for a business that has a very limited budget, what do you think should be the best avenue of marketing they should go down?
So I'm probably biased in that I'm going to say, actually, no, I need to think about that for a minute because that is a really good question.
Because I feel like this is a common problem with most businesses out there, because a lot of businesses have very limited budgets.
Yeah. So I'm definitely going to be biased. I'm going to say that video is one of the most important tools and one of the best ones to get your brand to stand out. And I think part of the tricky part that made me pause for a minute is the video creation process actually doesn't necessarily have to be that expensive. If you're creative about the way that you're filming something and you're creative about the way that you're telling a story, but the distribution aspect of it can be challenging. Sometimes if you're putting something on TV or on streaming, you have to push a lot of dollars behind it. And so that's what made me pause. But then I was thinking about it, and it's like, in my mind, if your content is strong, it doesn't necessarily matter how much money you're putting behind it. Like we have so many platforms today where you can reach people without having to pay a lot for it. Like think about YouTube, think about Instagram, think about Facebook, think about sending that video through an email or something like that. All of those things have relatively low cost and a low barrier to entry to a company. And so I would say if you don't have a lot of marketing dollars to play with, just really think about the story that you're going to tell for your end client and how you're going to connect with them on that fundamental, primal, emotional level that really makes them feel something and makes them believe in your product. And then when you produce that story, distribute it on platforms at a lower cost. And that's going to be a very powerful marketing tactic in compared to some of these things that are maybe a little bit more impersonal. And it's more of a numbers game and a volume game in order to get leads. Like or something like pay-per-click on Google, where you could be spending a lot more to get the leads in the top end of the funnel, or direct mail where you're spending a lot more to be able to reach enough people to generate leads. I would say a lot of other marketing channels operate on a percentage of the total people that they're reaching. Like there's only a small number that are going to convert just because of the nature of those marketing tactics. Whereas this video, if you're speaking into the heart of someone, it's not necessarily a numbers game. It's like that one-to-one connection with every single person. And so you have a lot higher success rate if you're telling that story well. And that's why I would definitely recommend creating video as one of the easiest and best ways to reach people if you're on a limited budget.
For sure. It's hard to find another, I guess, like marketing avenue that's similar, where it has the same latitude as video, where it's, you can go to crazy budgets, but then also essentially a zero budget video, and they both can be effective.
Yeah.
Very few other marketing avenues are like that. You think about ads, if your budget's too low, it's not going to go out to anybody, and you can't do it for free. Versus video, you can. It just depends on the quality of your content, how well you've created that video.
Absolutely. So there's a reason why it's like one of those guerrilla marketing tactics that you see a lot of brands use to get that initial start and that initial awareness that they need to gain traction.
Yep, for sure. And then on the top end too, there's like kind of no limit. If you want to look like a national brand, you can, but it requires a bigger budget to create that. So
right, there's costs involved, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a barrier to achieving that same look at a local level.
Yeah, for sure. We're going to go into the discussion now. So I'm going to have two different sections.
Discussion time!
Exactly. So for the first section, I'm going to list a few statistics, and I just want to hear your reaction to them.
Yeah.
Right. So Gen X spends more money online annually than any other group.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like Gen X is at an age demographic right now where they've been in the workforce for several decades. They've saved up that money, and the internet and like e-commerce has been around long enough where they're familiar with it. And so that just essentially makes sense to me. It's like they're at that time in their life where they're more likely to spend on the things that they want, and they're willing to pay a price premium for the products that they want. And the way that e-commerce has become so developed, it's just a very easy medium for them to get what they want pretty much on demand.
Over half of households earning over $100,000 salary use coupons.
That also makes sense to me. I think growing up, when you're young, you hear $100,000 and you think that's a lot of money. But I think the older we get, and once you're actually out in the workforce and you realize all the costs that are incurred just on a monthly basis, you realize that $100,000 doesn't necessarily stretch as far as it used to. But you just have the overall cost of living in general just being higher than it was 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And I think that if someone is being financially responsible with their money and they're being a good steward of the funds that they've generated or that, were given to them, et cetera, they're kind of looking for every single avenue that they can in order to just kind of maximize their dollars and just be able to meet all the needs that they have on a monthly basis. So it absolutely makes sense that they're using coupons. And as a marketer, obviously, thinking about that from the flip side of that, it's like, how do you capitalize that and offer them an appealing deal that's still going to fit within your margin, but it's going to make them feel like they're having that good value and make them want to come back over and over again.
65% of high net worth individuals based on $100,000 salary use Instagram for researching purchases.
It seems obvious that the younger generation would use social media in terms of seeing how a product works, being able to see, reaction videos or product reviews, or just kind of see how it works in action. I think it surprised me that you see older people also adapting and using some of these platforms to kind of get to that same purpose, because 65% is like obviously going to be indexed across pretty much like every age demographic. I'm sure it's probably skewed on the younger side, but you definitely have people in older generations who are using that technology. And I think it's cool because we're at a point now where social media as a tool for like e-commerce is kind of reached the maturity phase. So it's like, I think you had a lot of young people who are early adopters at the beginning of the product life cycle. And now that's reaching maturity, you see a lot larger percentage of the population using that in order to make their purchasing decisions. And again, as a marketer, that really tells you that you essentially need to be in the places where your clients and your customers are actually at, right? If your clients are on Instagram and you're trying to market to them on Pinterest or on X or something like that, like you're not going to generate any results. But if you have the data that suggests, oh, they're on Instagram, that means you need to have that robust presence on Instagram in order to be meeting them where they're at. So it's just back to our point earlier about having the data before you make your decisions. It's like, doing that sort of research and knowing where your clients actually live within the digital space, just within the world in general, in terms of commerce, and meeting them where they're at is like absolutely crucial in order to drive results.
Gotcha. Perfect. And that was the last bit for this section of the discussion. On the last section, I'm going to say a few quotes, and I kind of want to hear your reaction.
Nice.
So for the first one, a great ad doesn't sell a product. It sells the idea that stopping to look was worth their time.
I think that makes a lot of sense and is kind of in line with some of the philosophy that I've been kind of elaborating on earlier. So again, it's all about the why. It's all about just making the customer feel a certain way about their lifestyle. So I think you see this all the time with like Apple's marketing. They do a really good job of, they're not usually selling an iPhone. They're selling the idea of communication, or like kind of revolutionizing that process to be connected across the globe, to make you feel that feeling of power of being able to express yourself and express your individuality. You see the same thing with like Levi and their commercials about feeling free. Like, it's not about the jeans you wear. It's not about the amount of denim or like, the fabric weave or whatever. It's like the ability to express your identity and find yourself and just feel that feeling of freedom. So those are a couple of different examples to your point of selling that why. It's helping the client to see that higher need that they have in their life. You're thinking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's probably at the top of that pyramid in terms of self-fulfillment or realization and sense of identity. And when you're helping them to feel that sense of identity with the product that you're selling, it's absolutely going to be worth their time to watch that ad. Mm-hmm. It's going to inspire them and make them want to learn more about your product or even buy it so that they can experience that same thing.
So it's like, how does the ad or the product make the customer feel?
100%. Yep. Yeah. Selling the why rather than the what or the how.
Yeah, exactly. The next one is, your product isn't competing on price. It's competing on how clearly it solves a problem in their mind.
That's also a great point. I think at the end of the day, I always boil it down into my mind in terms of how are we different and what matters to our clients, right? And you need to do some data validation to figure out what matters to your client at the end of the day. Usually it's not really the price that's the deciding factor for them. It's like they have this need. Maybe they're hungry and they want pizza and they want it fast. Like, Domino's is cheap, but the overall need they have isn't that the pizza is cheap. It's that they wanted a fast meal quickly, right? And so it's not necessarily, as a marketer, always trying to discount all the time. It's understanding, what does your client need and how can we meet that effectively? Like in the home services, how do we get there quickly? How do we do the service right the first time? Make sure they're not going to have any other problems with their actual components, right? It's not necessarily, oh, we're cheaper and more expensive than anyone else. It's like, are you doing a quality job for the things that matter to them in our industry? That would be speed and not having to get called back a second time.
Gotcha. So essentially being less of a headache for the customer, being exactly what they want, but obviously they don't have to discount the price for that.
100%. Yeah. In the home services space, that's definitely what it is. Mm-hmm. And obviously industry to industry, that's going to vary wildly, whether it's pizza, whether it's home services, whether it's a phone or something like that. Every single product is going to have a different why for your customer. You need to be different in what matters to them in your specific industry, and you figure that out by doing the research to know what actually matters to them and then seeing what everyone else does so you can be different.
Gotcha. Perfect. All right, for the next one, good marketing gets attention, great marketing gets remembered, but the best marketing gets repeated.
I like that one. That's really good. I think that's just like a building iteration on itself, right? It's like, yeah, obviously you want to be remembered. You want to cut through the noise, all that stuff that we've been talking about through the rest of this episode. But at the end of the day, marketing is a function of driving business results, right? No one's going to spend money on marketing if at the end of the day, it's not ultimately having a bottom line impact on your revenue as a business. And so great marketing is figuring out how to convert that feeling of why or wanting to align with a lifestyle with actually getting the sale, so that your company is willing to invest and repeatedly invest in more marketing to continue to drive those results that you are generating with the assets that you are creating or the strategies that you're using to actually reach people.
Gotcha. Perfect. All right. So for the last one, trust builds faster when other people talk about you than when you talk about yourself.
Right. So when you have those people who, are just have that halo effect and are talking about your brand, it's going to spread that halo of trust faster. When you see other people in the marketplace talking about your product, you're way more likely to believe it when it's your neighbor Susie or your neighbor John, and they're showing you or telling you about this product in this individualized personal experience that they've had with it than you can by being an impersonal company telling them what it should do for them, right? So it's like recognizing that balance between, yes, you need to talk about yourself and like get your name out there, but also recognizing the power in firsthand experience from people's individual lives and communicating with each other about that.
Perfect. We have a sort of a final question. What is your favorite example of good marketing?
Ooh, that is a great question. I'm going to pause for a minute to give that the respect and the time it deserves. That's a great question. You guys should pause and think about it too. Pause the video right now and think about it before you watch this answer.
Comment below your favorite example.
Comment below your favorite example. Smash the like button.
Subscribe your favorite example.
Subscribe your favorite example. I feel like I'm biased because I'm like instantly thinking about like different videos I've seen, right? But that's like definitely a subcategory or a niche.
There's so many forms of marketing.
There's so many forms, and it's like,
especially like what's trending now. I don't know if you've noticed, but it's like so many companies these days are doing a lot of pop-ups.
Mm-hmm.
Like pop-ups are really trending as a marketing form right now. So
yeah,
it's like there's new forms opening up of marketing. You even have what's it called, the Duolingo mascot going to like doing like crazy stuff on social media, going to like games and like what was it? I think they went to concerts too or something like that.
People love the Duolingo mascot.
Yeah. So it's like that's a great example. What are some other examples? You have Red Bull's marketing. Trying to think of some other ones, but there's just so many different forms of just being creative. Was it, if I remember correctly, was it KFC? Had I think it was on Twitter where they unfollowed everyone except for 5 people, and it was like the spices that they used for their chicken, and no one noticed until like maybe a couple months later, and then just all of a sudden it blew up.
No, it's crazy. I think one of the ones that I think about recently too, when Severance season 2 was coming out, I don't know if you saw this, but they did an installation in Grand Central Station in New York where the actors were in like glassed in offices in the middle of the train station.
Oh, I did see
and we're
that
pretending
actually.
to work.
Yeah.
So it's like, as people were just walking past, you see this crazy thing and you're like, what are these people doing in here? Like they're acting like they're just working away and like can't see any of us, and like stuff like that just, it gets people to talk about you, like, and just like want to share it. Like they want to, it's like relatable, it's relevant and shareable. And like, if you can achieve those 3 things with your marketing, you're going to have a home run every single time.
Yeah. And it kind of goes into what we were talking about earlier, how it's like your customers are sharing your product, not you sharing it. All you're doing is just putting your product somewhere where it's visible. And then just because it's interesting and people are just walking by saying like, oh, what is this? They're going to share it on social media.
100%. I think that's why guerrilla marketing is usually the most memorable, because it has that perfect balance of relevancy, relatability, and shareability. And it's just usually because it's something so out of the ordinary that like breaks you out of the routine or like the mundane tasks of ordinary life that you like stop and say like, what the heck is going on? Like, I don't remember what company it was, but it was in California, and they had like a gorilla riding up and down the escalator with like a balloon with like the company brand on it, like in a big corporate office building, like for hours of the day. And it's like when you see something like that, you're like, what the heck is going on? Like you're going to take videos of it, you're going to take photos of it, you're going to want to send it to other people. And that's just like essentially free marketing for your company.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, that's a wrap.
Woo!